Oh my, Magnum Opus 1.0 approaching. On this 5-part Top X, I will share the 50 best games I've played, and explain why you should also play them eventually. As these are only games I've played, for most, heavily, this isn't a fitting best 50 games of all time, so your favorite games may just be ones I haven't played yet. I'm also going to be limiting to one game per explicit series or line unless I feel a second really did something to make it stand out from the series. And compilations and remakes are fair game if I consider them on par or better than the games in their original release. This will keep my favorite long-running series from filling the list. Last time we did 50 to 41, now 40 to 31. Yoshi's Story is a very underrated Mario platformer. And I say Mario platformer loosely, because there's no Mario. This is Yoshi's first and only solo platformer until Woolly World. Instead of racing to the end of the level, Yoshi's Story bucks the trend, instead creating looping levels as its worst levels, and highly interconnected side-scrolling romps at its best. And those worst levels are still very good. The game creates a playful pop-up book atmosphere. But even without it, the game has some of the most fun and accessible levels. You clear stages by eating 30 fruit, which is very easy, but more advanced players will have a more careful diet focusing on lucky or color-coded fruit and Yoshi Dew melons to try to get the highest score. Each level even contains exactly 30 melons as a challenge for the most advanced players. And if you eat them in the right order, you can uncover secret caches of coins to further boost your score. Even how you deal with enemies can boost your score if you don't use them to supplement your egg supply. Yoshi's Story has a great atmosphere players of all ages can appreciate, and levels designed to be accessible to players of all different skill levels. Kirby's first game was a conservative platformer with 4 levels and no copy abilities. Kirby's next game on the NES was a much larger game worthy of the adventure title, with 7 worlds composed of multiple levels and minigames, with a unique boss waiting at the end of each world. Plus the famous copy ability debuted. This allowed Kirby's adventure to not only be a much larger and epic adventure, it gave the game incredible replay value, and was accessible to players of all different skill levels. Some abilities are much more powerful, and others are likely to get you killed if you are inexperienced, but can be especially potent when used properly. Inexperienced players can even usually hug the ceiling if they wish, to get past tough sections. And like Mega Man bosses have a pattern that makes perfect victories possible, if you care to try, Kirby's Adventure is still the definitive Kirby platformer. After 3 Mario Karts, Nintendo started to fear the series was getting predictable. So they decided to include a co-op mechanic where 2 characters race together, allowing for skilled and less skilled players to play together. In addition, the characters now have classes able to use certain class cards instead of attributes, so your favorite character won't always control one way that you may find strange. Each team is also capable of having 2 items on hand, allowing for additional options. Plus, each character has a special item they can get. Let's also not forget the game has allowed 16 players to play together. Eat your heart out, Smash Brothers. I'll also say the game becomes even better with action replay, allowing free card selection. And this. Yeah, Bowser has certain talents. This game has problems. Mostly problems with design and execution. A lot of the characters and objects look extremely fuzzy and rough. Some dungeons are long and disable saving for their entirety, and the game is littered with points of no return, and has the guts to tease you with the ability to fly and return to any area. But the flying vehicle you obtain can only be used to progress the game. This game also is brilliant in other areas, The writing is the best I've seen in any video game. It may seem odd, even awkward on the first playthrough, but if you play through the game a second time, you will see all the careful foreshadowing, wordplay, jokes, and puns interwoven into the script. And the puns are actually good. Very few acclaimed authors have this masterful a grasp on foreshadowing and in-jokes for subsequent reads. The battle system is also extremely unique, having a very tactical feel. You can place a party member on your front lines to have a greater range for attacks, or place a hurting character in the back to try to keep them away from attacks. How your team attacks is also important because slain enemies will remain on field for at least the turn they are slain. So ganging all of your characters on one enemy may have a character or two attack its corpse. If an enemy corpse is attacked enough, you will overkill them, and the enemy will vaporize. Boost your ether and be permanently removed from battle. Attacking an enemy corpse is also important when facing immortal enemies who will revive after death if their corpse survives the turn they are killed on, and any other enemies are alive. The equipment system is also refreshing in that the abilities equipments grant are more important than the stat boosts. So equipping your characters requires you to have a strategy in mind for how you will use them. You also have the ability to equip consumable items to be used automatically if needed. The game also makes you feel bad for stealing from NPCs, and after beating the game, you can play an endurance battle mode to unlock secret characters, or a new game plus to fully appreciate the script. We already had Paper Mario, and nobody was sure if Mario and Luigi could truly stand out on its own. 5 or 15 games in, the franchise is still going while Paper Mario is lost against all odds. Mario and Luigi stood out as being crazier and wackier, as well as having a more skill-based battle system. Yes, in Paper Mario good timing will deal more damage or reduce damage, but in Mario or Luigi you can completely dodge enemy attacks, meaning technically you could do a run only fighting bosses and story mandatory enemies. Of the Mario and Luigi games I've played, the first was the most balanced and best paced. While this may not be my absolute favorite Mega Man series, this is still a great game technically and fun. Taking a world design cue from The Legend of Zelda, Mega Man Legends set the standard for open world games that would follow. It was very impressive and unique at the time to have the massive network of different dungeons coming together to make one huge dungeon. Normally sequels improve, but Mega Man Legends 2 didn't have as impressive a dungeon, and while still great, is inferior in this regard. Taking cues from Mega Man Legends, Nintendo brought us the most solid Star Fox game since Star Fox 64, taking the series in a direction that felt natural: third-person shooting. If we were going to have Star Fox on foot, this is how it needed to be done, and it works. The game may be short and somewhat linear, some of the foot missions may be poorly designed, but this is still one of the best Star Fox games. And the multiplayer, in my opinion, this game's multiplayer makes Star Fox 64's multiplayer look bad. Which it isn't. These are just some of the best multiplayer levels I've seen in a battle mode. I would be so hyped if Nintendo expanded and polished the Assault battle mode and released it as a standalone game, with a stream of DLC coming. Also, one last thing, this game beats Smash Bros. And Splatoon in keeping you playing. Or at least it did for me. You unlock new multiplayer content for so long, and at just the right pace to keep you going one more round over and over. My brain thinks it's Christmas with all this dopamine. Taking a cue from Star Fox. Wait, no. Actually, Awakening does have rabbit people. I usually don't play every Fire Emblem. Some look bland and some just come out around the same time as a better game, so it gets pushed into a mental queue. Awakening was the perfect storm. I was ready for more Fire Emblem, and this game was looking interesting with a good pace. And it is. It even brings in the biggest characters of the past games and embraces the rest of the franchise. And it has respawning enemies, meaning if a less skilled player needs to, they can grind and enjoy the game too. Or if the enemies just keep going past Kellum and Donald and attacking Frederick even though his defense is too high for them to hurt him and he ends up the only character to get experience on the enemy turn where the enemies most attack you. Plus, these are some of my favorite characters in any Fire Emblem, even if it got way too dialogue heavy. Though nothing can beat the exposition dumps in Genealogy of the Holy War. There are some things in some series that are always great. Mario Party is not one of those things. The first 6 were the strongest with a couple losing their way and becoming boring. For me, the absolute pinnacle was Mario Party 3. The boards were strong, the minigames included some of the series' strongest minigames. It added 2 new characters allowing for much greater variety. It introduced gambling minigames, and generally improved everything the first 2 games did. Plus it had the 2-player battle mode, which, why is that never returned? It was absolutely awesome for when you couldn't get 4 people to play at once. Heck, I liked playing that one alone against the CPU, and I loved Tumble. He should have stayed as the official Mario Party spokesman. All Nintendo has to do for a great Mario Party is pull the best boards and minigames from the series, add new gimmick-free boards and minigames, and do it in the style of Mario Party 3. Oh, and of course online play. Every playable character so far, plus new ones and free and paid DLC of all different kinds. Call it Mario Party DX, and never give it a sequel, just DLC. Or at least hold the sequel until you can blow Mario Party DX out of the water. The best NES games had one thing in common: tough, intimidating bosses with patterns that telegraphed their attacks. Mario did it, Zelda did it, and Kirby and Mega Man did it masterfully. But doing it perfectly was the pride of Punch-Out! In Punch-Out!, you are a tiny boxer facing the meanest giants. A true David versus Goliath fight. Only David has no slingshot. He has to say a prayer and use his brain to see his opponent's tells and patterns. By exploiting these patterns, his weak punches can build up and keep him from being wheelchair-bound for life. Punch-Out! Is literally a boss rush using this foolproof boss formula. Most of the bosses look scary, and their hits are scarier. You'll probably get your ass kicked by them, but they all telegraph their attacks, unlike other fighting games of the time, about reflexes and mashing buttons. This was a game that rewarded thinking and strategy. Also, please, every youth pastor ever, use this game as an example. We are getting there, but let's take a break to let this render, and have an episode question. I mentioned how much I think Punch-Out! Has incredible boss battles. So what boss battles have stood out as being terrible? Well, on this topic of Punch-Out!, the same guy I plugged last video also talked about Punch-Out!, and brings up another aspect that makes the game great. I just don't think it's as impressive as the fact the bosses have clear patterns. Now to show myself, you may be interested in the 8 defining characteristics of Mega Man, or the defining characteristics of Kirby. They'll go up before this, right? If not, keep checking back.